In this video, we'll discuss the different types of factorial designs. So the first type of design we're going to talk about is a between subjects design. And let's remember back from chapter 8 that this is where we compare sample data from one group to sample data from another group. And let's also think back to our example from earlier videos for this chapter when we talked about group type versus social interaction with each one of these factors having two levels. So each level had an N of 10. And so here there's an in-group ostracism group, and we needed 10 people for that. Then we had an out-group ostracism group, and we needed 10 more individuals for that group. Then we had an inclusion in-group. We needed 10 more individuals for that, and an out-group inclusion group, and we needed 10 more individuals for that. So overall, if we look at that, how many individuals did we use for this sample? Is it 10? No, it's 10, 20, 30, 40. So we have a total N of 40 for this sample size. So that's one of the negatives of this type of design, is that a between subjects design requires a large number of participants. Another negative is that individual differences can become confounding variables. So again, because we have different individuals in each group, those extraneous variables among those groups could end up becoming confounding variables if one of those extraneous variables varies consistently with the groups. However, there are also some pluses, is that it avoids what are known as order effects. And so we'll talk more about those order effects as we get into the within subjects design. Within subjects is the next type that we're going to talk about. And again, just to remind ourselves, here we have one group of individuals, and one type would be data before, data after. And an example here might be something like this study. So this study, they had individuals use marijuana and do a difficult and an easy task. And then, of course, they let that marijuana, maybe 24 hours, a week later, they came back and had them do a placebo and do a difficult task and an easy task. So this is completely within subjects. All the subjects smoked marijuana, did a difficult task and an easy task. All the subjects later on did not smoke marijuana and performed a difficult task and an easy task. So one advantage is that it requires only one group of individuals. That's great. So the total N for this, if you look overall, is simply 10. It's a much smaller number. We only had one group of individuals, and they did all 4 conditions. So this is going to eliminate problems with individual differences, which is nice. However, one of the disadvantages is that each participant undergoes a high number of trials. So if you look here, I mean, this is a high number of trials, right? 4 different, each subject has to do 4 different things. They do 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. So this is time consuming, and because it's time consuming, that can also contribute to attrition. So people might say, I don't have time to come back a week later and do the placebo question. Placebo condition, you already gave me marijuana, I'm good to go. Or people in the placebo condition say, I already did this and it was kind of boring, so I want to come back. It also increases the risk of order effects. So again, you can't have every participant smoke marijuana, do the difficult, easy task, come back a week later, smoke nothing, or smoke a placebo and do the difficult and easy task. You can't do it in that, because what if they just get better at the tasks as time goes on? So you have to control that, and there's a variety of different ways we can do that. So another type of design is a mixed subjects design, and it's kind of like it sounds. You take some of the elements of a between subjects design and some of the elements of a within subjects design, and you combine them together. So it's both within and between subjects. So in other words, a factorial study that combines 2 different research designs. And it's used when one factor is thought to potentially threaten the validity. And so whether it's, it could be different types of validity. And so an example that we had earlier on in the videos as well was this where we had factor A was the sport, where they had contact or no contact, and the other factor was time, was before season or after season. And so obviously they didn't play both contact and non-contact sports, but the people who played contact sports had the test before and after the season. The people who played the non-contact sports had the test both before and after the season. So this is our within subjects variable, and this is our between subjects variable. So what this is showing you is that within the contact group you have an n of 10, and the same individuals are measured before the season and then after the season. Within the non-contact group you have an n of 10, and the same individuals are measured before the season and after season. So your n here equals 20. So now let's touch on this idea again of experimental versus quasi-experimental. So in an experimental study, remember, all the factors are manipulated by the researchers, and randomization is used. Those are our key features, right? In a quasi-experimental, you're going to have different levels of an independent variable or different levels of a factor, but the factors are not manipulated, and so they are quasi-experimental variables. Now, sometimes researchers will use what's called, so the combined strategy, probably the most common, because the researcher will decide to manipulate one variable, making it experimental in nature, and then take another variable that might be pre-existing. So it uses two different research strategies in the same design. Again, one factor is a true independent variable, and a second factor is quasi-experimental in nature. It's either something that's pre-existing, maybe time, gender, something like that. So my senior project was a combined strategy. We manipulated a memory technique category, so some people got to use the method of loci and other people did not, but we used gender as a second variable that was already pre-existing. And then we also had a third level, so I had a 3-factor design to my study, which was spatial abilities, where we measured their spatial ability and then we split them into high and low. So gender, pre-existing, no randomization. Spatial ability, also pre-existing, we just dichotomized it. So here, this is something from your book just talking about another type of design where you have a treatment group and a control group. They get the pre-test and the post-test. And I just wanted to, but again, this ends up being a 2-factor design. And here, so instead of a treatment group, we had, say, our control group would be our non-contact, our treatment group would be those that had played contact sports, and then we did pre-test and post-test. So one factor is time, and the other factor is contact. And so this is obviously, both of these are pre-existing things that are not being manipulated, so this is a truly quasi-experimental design.